It's 1971. George Harrison has brought rock legends like Eric Clapton, Bob Dylan and Ringo Starr together for a special concert. Backstage at Madison Square Garden, New York, the musicians are tense.
It was very exciting. We'd been in the dressing room sitting there for maybe an hour. We'd had all the ups and downs of the dressing room, you know, the big buzzy conversation and then the absolute silence when Dylan walked in. And out in the hallway there's George in a white suit.
Joey Molland from a group called Badfinger was part of the backing band that day.
So we go out, the crowd is going crazy, of course, cheering, and we just went on stage. We were all rehearsed, and we just sat down and waited for the count, made sure the guitars were in tune, and away we went. Of course, the very start of the show was wah-wah, and I can hear the horns, you know, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. We were sitting right next to the horns. The whole thing was just electric. It was really exciting for me. You know, imagine me, I'm just a bloke from Liverpool playing the guitar, sitting on that stage with all those guys. It was fantastic.
Nothing like the concert for Bangladesh had ever been organised before. It was George Harrison's response to a plea from his friend, the sitar player Ravi Shankar. In 1971, Bangladeshis had been suffering as a result of a devastating flood and their country's war for independence.
Mr. Harrison, with all of the enormous problems in the world, how did you happen to choose this one to do something about?
Because I was asked by a friend if I'd help, you know, that's all.
My friend came to me, sadness in his eyes, told me that he wanted help before his country dies.
Within weeks, George Harrison had written a charity song and persuaded his rock star friends to drop everything and head for New York.
Bangladesh, Bangladesh.
As they started to rehearse, the project grew and grew.
Through the week, the different musicians came and the band built up. Until Saturday, we had that enormous band on stage. The thing I'm trying to get to is how much work George put into it, because with each one of those players, George went over those songs.
Was George nervous?
Yes, I think he was. I think he put a lot of work into it to make sure he felt good, you know.
Of course, he was going to have to front the concert as well, which was something he'd never done in the Beatles.
That's exactly right, and it was for a really important cause. You know, I'm sure George felt deeply about this.
I'd just like to say before we start off with the concert, to thank you all for coming here. As you all know, it's a special benefit concert. We've got a good show lined up, I hope so anyway. First part of the concert is going to be an Indian music section.
Appropriately, the concert started with a performance by Ravi Shankar himself. Then George Harrison brought out his friends and performed some of his biggest hits. The British film producer, Lord David Putnam, was in the audience.
I loved his diffidence.
He was quite nervous, people seem to think.
Oh, extremely, and it came across. I mean, I think it wasn't something he was that comfortable with. What was nice was the evident warmth for him, that these people had turned up for him. There was huge warmth towards George. I think they knew they were doing something that hadn't been done before. I remember my whole attitude to Eric Clapton. I had to rethink it. I thought, actually, he's got to be a really good guy. You know, clearly he's put himself out here. Clapton, I think, dug very, very deep. But the other sense was that probably George couldn't have done it without him, because there's 2 or 3 moments where there's things happening on the stage where you actually get the sense he's looking at Clapton. I've looked at the DVD many times, where he's looking at Clapton for reassurance. And the fact that Clapton's there, I think, was a big factor for him.
You can hear the guitars sort of playing around each other and almost talking to each other.
A very well made point. It's absolutely true. And what happened was George grew, actually, I think, during the concert.
And there was another friend who helped George Harrison out, although nobody was quite sure whether he'd turn up.
I'd like to bring on a friend of us all, Mr. Bob Dylan.
We actually hadn't heard anything about Dylan coming. George never said anything during the week. On the Saturday, though, after we'd finished the dress rehearsal, we were waiting in the audience, the whole band, everybody, and Bob Dylan walked on stage at the Garden with his acoustic guitar and his harmonica and started to play Bob Dylan songs. And we sat in the audience kind of dumbstruck, really, because there was Bob Dylan on stage giving us like a private show. It was like Jesus walked in or something like that.
Oh, where have you been, my blue-eyed son? And where have you been, my darling young one?
Dylan obviously was a huge plus, because I didn't know that Dylan was going to be on the bill. There was a rumour that he might.
Yeah.
But when he came on, it was a surprise, and it was obviously a massive cheer. I've seen Dylan several times since. I've seen him once before, several times. I never saw him that good. I never saw him that engaged or that charming, actually. That evening was different. He was different.
Been 10,000 miles in the mouth of a graveyard. It's a hard, and it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard, it's a hard rain's gonna fall.
By the end of the show, there'd also been amazing performances by more of George Harrison's friends, like Billy Preston and Leon Russell. For the finale, George led the band in a rousing version of his charity song.
When he took his bow and thanked everybody, I thought he was just beaming, just shining on the stage. He'd done such a great job. I'm sure it was a relief when it was over. Just fabulous, you know what I mean? Playing an event like that is a wonderful thing. When it's over, there's a real deathly quiet for an instant. And then everybody goes mad, you know what I mean? And we're all banging on guitars and doing all that stuff,
Joey Molland went on to make more records with Badfinger and has just made a new album. George Harrison died in 2001. The concert, says Joey, was one of the former Beatles' finest moments.
It certainly ranks with the top events in George's life, and in terms of his contribution to our society, it may be the biggest thing he did. It's raised a stunning amount of money. Spiritually, I think it sent a wave around the world. Public awareness was raised. Rock musicians started to feel a bit, well, maybe we can do something to help affect change. Nobody was really sure back then, I don't think.
George is something that no one had imagined was possible before. That's what's so very special about this. He imagined that something could be done using the skills he had and using the relationships he had, and no one had made that connection before. Bob Geldof's talked about this and about how, when he put on his show, how at least he was doing something someone had done before. He wasn't cold calling. He had a reference point. Exactly. That was what was great. I've got particularly warm memories of him, but that made him extraordinary. And that, in a sense, makes him more extraordinary, most extraordinary of the four Beatles.
Lord Putnam later became a good friend of George Harrison and is now an ambassador for UNICEF, the charity which he helped in that concert 40 years ago.